Hi, this is Erica Merrill. I'm the founder of Perfect Legal Video, and I am very excited, as always, to have the esteemed attorney Nicole Reeves Lavallee out of Worcester. She has a family law firm there, and today she's going to be talking to us about the DCF. And I want to welcome you to the show today. Thank you so much, Nicole, for joining us.
Thank you. It's my pleasure.
So, I don't know a ton about the DCF, but for some reason I have a bad feeling whenever I hear those three letters. And I'm not sure what it is, but I'd love for you to explain to us, what is the DCF?
So DCF is Department of Children and Families, formerly known as Department of Social Services. It's basically your social workers that are coming out to your house to investigate claims of abuse or neglect of your children. So their main goal is to protect the children and to make sure that the children are in a safe environment at all times.
So they do good work. It's just that people think they're in trouble if the DCF is coming out, and it's almost like having a police officer come and visit you. No good can come of it in your mind, probably, but the whole idea is that they are there to protect the children.
Absolutely. So the biggest thing is obviously to make sure to protect the children, but certainly, it's one of those things that sometimes situations are overblown, sometimes stories are embellished, and sometimes things really did happen that are bad. So, you don't know where you fall into the scheme of things, and you don't know exactly what was said to the DCF worker. So basically, DCF gets a call from an anonymous person, from a mandated reporter, from a spouse. And they say, hey, I know that this child has been injured or is being abused, and let me tell you about the facts of it. And so they will do what is either a screen in or screen out of that call itself, make a determination, and if it's screened in, then they will go to the parties' houses and they will investigate, and they will talk to the children, and they will talk to each parent individually.
So that's when they get involved, when they've done a little bit of a preliminary exploration of the complaint, and then they have to go out and check it out in person.
Correct. Although that being said, during COVID, they're doing a lot of them by Zoom or just by telephone calls, but generally they are required, short of a pandemic, to do it in person, to meet with the child. And they're meeting with the child individually, so we're not having mom or dad listening in. They'll take the kids into the bedroom and have that conversation.
So what types of issues do they investigate?
So again, it's all investigations based off of what people are saying. If it's a mandated reporter, and a mandated reporter is going to be a school, a hospital, somebody of that nature, social worker, certain people are mandated to report things that they think a child is being abused or neglected. Obviously, they're going to take those a little more seriously than from a spouse or a jilted person, that type of thing. But what they do is they go out and investigate any claims regarding abuse or neglect. And neglect is really vague because it could simply be that I was in the bathroom and my child fell down the stairs, who's 8 years old. Well, we all know that children can walk down the stairs for the most part, and it could be just a fluky thing. But because you weren't there, obviously this child was injured. And so now we have to investigate whether or not somebody pushed the child, or if it was just really an accident, or maybe you had really bad conditions in the house and the steps were falling apart. I mean, there's all sorts of things that can kind of stem from that specific thing. And then obviously the more in-depth ones are where you have people that are physically abusing the children, or it could be something just somewhere in the middle where somebody is claiming that, the children are witnessing mom or dad smoking or drinking marijuana, pot, even cigarettes, depending on the severity and what medical conditions that child might have.
Wow. Yeah, and it must be tough for them because honestly, there are certain ages where the kids they need to be watched all the time because they're not the smartest about what they do. I know, like right now, we have the pandemic, and I bought a swing set for my child because, my God, I couldn't get her to get off of the furniture. She was flipping on things, and luckily she didn't get hurt, but like I had to stop her several times from standing on a medicine ball. I'm like, what do you think is going to happen when you roll off and like land right on your head? I'm like, so I'm like, I'm at, most parents that have kids that are just at that age where they are active and crazy. You have to watch them all the time. I wouldn't even think about leaving her alone. And I must talk, before I got the swing set, I was talking to her 5 times a day about crazy stuff she was trying to do. So, but I know that she would have been injured had I not done that.
And that's exactly the point. Sometimes it's just that the kids are super duper bored. Other times, like one of the incidences we had was child was learning to ride her bike, went from training wheels to non-training wheels, was going to fall, and dad grabbed her arm. Unfortunately, when he grabbed her, because she was going to fall, he left a mark on her. Well, that's something that DCF is going to investigate and say, hey, you should never leave bruises. Well, again, it's something that I'm doing to protect my child. So those are the types of things that they are going to come out and they're going to investigate, and they're going to figure out a best way to make sure that you are taking care of your child. Because it might just be an isolated incident, but it might not.
Yeah, I mean, if you see that happening all the time, they're either not watching the child and the child is just getting hurt themselves doing stupid things, or they could be hurting the child. But like I know, like if you're trying to stop someone from falling, you could pull their arm out of their socket or something. I mean, I remember that happening to my sister when she was younger. We were just fooling around and swinging her around, holding both of her hands, and it just popped out, and that's very painful. But maybe they shouldn't have been doing that. I'm not going to say which parent it was, but I mean, those kinds of things definitely happen. But so it must be hard for them to try to, segregate like what is, all the time, and the kids are acting like they're hurt or abused is probably part of it. And then what is just kids are being crazy and the parents aren't watching close enough.
And that's a good point. If it is the kids are being crazy and the parents aren't watching close enough, that's neglect. Most of the DCF workers will find that is a case of neglect, and you need to better parent and better supervise. And again, we all know as parents, you can't be there 24/7 as much as you'd like to. But at the end of the day, that's something that DCF can get involved with. And unfortunately, that does have an impact on your life for months.
Is that how long it takes to investigate?
So initially, when you get that phone call from DCF, they'll do the screen in or screen out. After that, what happens is they will do an investigation, which is going to the house, talking to both parents and the children separately. That is a 10-day window for investigation. It's 10 business days, however. So it's a little bit longer, and basically as a result of that, they will define whether or not there is a case that is supported or unsupported. That's their words. So is there neglect? Is it supported or not? Is it abuse? Supported or not? Obviously, the ideal goal is for not supported in either of those cases. If it is supported, then what's going to end up happening is they will do an assessment of your family. And an assessment really is in-depth, take a look at your entire life, because they do go back to your childhood. They want to talk to each parent about their childhood and them growing up and what type of things that their parents did to punish. Because as we all know, history does repeat themselves, especially when it comes to abuse and neglect of that type of thing. So was it a learned behavior? Are you carrying it on to your children type mentality? But they will look at everything. They will look at what type of medications everybody is on. Can we talk to doctors? Can we talk to your doctors? It's very invasive. And at the end of that, they will come up with what is called a family service plan, which is essentially a plan that each parent has to fill out, or not fill out, they have to complete, and they have to follow each of those tasks on there. And they have a 3 to 6 month window to complete the tasks, and it's an ongoing basis.
Wow. So, I mean, I was going to ask you about like what the process was, but it sounds like you've talked a bit about the process already. Is there anything you'd like to add?
Again, just that if DCF doesn't see enough movement, enough growth from you in that period of time when the service plan is in place, then they will extend it, and they will extend it, and they will extend it until they are satisfied that you no longer need their services and you don't need them in your lives. One of the other things that will happen is once it's supported is DCF will come out with a social worker and visit each parent once a month. It's usually an hour-long meeting, and they will meet with you and the child again to kind of double check and make sure everything is happening according to plan.
So, how does it affect their pending case?
Good question. It can have huge impacts or it can have a nominal impact. It kind of depends on what the facts are that were supported. Again, if it's abuse, if it's a repeat case where DCF has been involved in your lives for the last 5 out of 7 years, then guess what? The court is going to take that more seriously, whether it's a first offense or not. You know, those are the types of issues that the court's really going to look at. They're also going to talk to DCF and determine what they're suggesting is reasonable. So what should we change? Should we change the parenting schedule? Should we put some precautions in place? Do we need family counseling? Do we need the parenting time to be supervised? They really do look at what DCF has to say, and then they go from there saying, maybe we should tweak this. So it really does have an impact in terms of how they should proceed with the case. And obviously the court can make any orders based off of what DCF does.
Wow. I mean, it's great that they have this. I mean, anything that's in place to help children, because there are so many children that fall through the cracks when it comes to abuse. And so it is great to have someone that's out there looking out for them. But I mean, I'm wondering that, you know, sometimes we talk a lot about divorce and how sometimes there are false allegations, and it's a strategy to get money or to get more parenting time or, you know, what have you. And so what happens if the allegations are incorrect and they need to backtrack?
So that does happen. Everybody has a right to appeal their decision. So when DCF makes that report saying that the abuse or neglect is supported, you do have a window of opportunity to appeal the decision. Once you appeal the decision, it would go to an appeals fair hearing officer. And what that is somebody that is going to listen to all the evidence, similar in nature to a court hearing, because each person gets to present evidence and each person gets to ask questions of the person that just testified. And then at the end of the day, the fair hearing officer will make a determination as to whether or not that is ruled sufficient and is going to stand, or if it is going to be overturned and that supported case is going to be no longer void. The problem is the fair hearings take forever to get, and they take even longer to get a decision. So unfortunately, you may very well be living with that supported decision for up to a year while you're waiting for the appeal to happen.
So once they do the investigation and, you know, there's a hearing in the court, how much weight does this DCF investigation hold when it comes to the court?
So generally speaking, there's two things that will happen. One is that the court is going to receive a copy of all of the notes from DCF. So the 51A and 51B reports are all going to be listed and is going to have information pertaining to what happened. The judge will receive an unredacted copy, which means they get to read every single word by every single person that was interviewed and what was transpired and what was said. The attorneys will each get to be able to look at it with their respective clients, but that version will be redacted, which means there will be information that is blacked out that we can't read. So we can kind of guess, like, who called it in, who made this claim. A lot of times you can read between the lines and figure it out. And they're always going to tell you whether it's mandated or not. So that kind of gives you a little bit of sense of who did it. But that report, along with their actual testimony saying what happened and what they're recommending, is going to carry a lot of weight, because the judge does get to read that report, which again is usually about 50 pages in length, if not longer, depending on how much history you have with DCF, along with what the DCF worker is currently saying about your case, and about what's been happening, and about how frequently you've been meeting with the DCF worker. If you've decided that you're not going to meet with them monthly like you're supposed to, then obviously the DCF worker is not going to say good things about you, and the court's going to take that into consideration as well.
I mean, it sounds like something you really shouldn't mess with. I mean, looking at how important it is and how you could, I think probably worst case scenario is you could lose your children, you could go to jail. There's a lot of bad things that could come about, their investigation coming out against what's happening in your home and how you're treating your children. So, I mean, this is really informative and a great interview. Is there anything you'd like to share? I mean, any stories or anything that we might have missed for this particular topic?
I think there's a couple key points. Big thing to learn is you're not your parents. What you are subjected to is not what you can subject your kids to today. Before, you spank your kid on the butt, oh, big deal. Nobody cared. Now, one word of that, and you will get a DCF investigation. And that's, again, even if they're attempting to, walk across the street and you're pulling them back and you spank them on the butt and say, don't do that, that's really bad, that could cause an investigation. So you have to understand what the law has changed and how you can accommodate that. They want to see timeouts. They want to see punishment by taking away electronics. They want to see those types of behaviors as punishments rather than any kind of corporal punishment, any kind of mental abuse. Unfortunately, some of the kids know this. So the older kids are going, go ahead, you can't do anything to me, I'll call DCF. And that's their attitude. And, to a certain degree, they might be right. But by the same token, it might be something that DCF does need to get involved in, and maybe the police need to get involved in, because if you have a child that's clearly unruly and is disrupting the home, then there are ramifications for that as well. So I think those are kind of the pitfalls that people should be aware of. I think the other thing is, you want to work with the DCF workers. They do have a lot of resources out there available for you so that you can get services. If you say, hey, I'm really looking for counseling, they can hook you up with somebody. They can put you in touch. They can give referrals. If somebody is in need of just a little more attention and being a good parent, they have parenting classes that they can sign you up for. They have batterers programs. So there are a lot of good services out there for them. It's just a matter of what is going to work for you and your family. But I do think you should take them seriously. And I think you need to know exactly what the ramifications are if they get involved, which is, most importantly, talk to them. Maybe talk to them after you've consulted with your attorney. And there have been times that I've gone out to the house for that assessment, for that initial investigation, because sometimes the allegations are just that extreme that you want to make sure your rights are protected.
Well, that makes a lot of sense. And, it's the kind of thing where if DCF does show up, you may want to have an attorney help walk you through things. Am I right about that?
Absolutely. You only have to say the words. It's kind of like, I want a lawyer when you're being arrested. If you say, I have a lawyer and I want to talk to them, then DCF is going to say, okay, Let's call your attorney. When can we meet with your attorney and you together? So it has the same ramifications as if it was a criminal case, because unfortunately it could be criminal. If the charges are potentially abuse, depending on the severity of the abuse, obviously they can notify the police and you could be arrested. So absolutely, you need to know your rights. You should not be talking to DCF without at least consulting with an attorney first and foremost.
So I just like everyone to know that if anything like this happens, or if you have any other family matters to handle in court, definitely pick up the phone and give Nicole's office a call, because they can give you options. They can tell you very clearly, if you do this, then this is going to happen. If you do that, then this is going to happen. They're in court every single day. Well, right now they're on the phone or over Zoom in court. But they've seen these cases over and over again for a couple of decades now, and it would really be a good decision to at least find out what your options are before trying to do something like this on your own. And so, and Nicole's office is really fantastic. They are awesome at negotiating. They know all the updated rules. They really keep on top of things, and they help you get, organized and, a great strategy to get what you need done accomplished. So thank you so much, Nicole, for coming on today. It is always a pleasure. The information is invaluable because this kind of thing can happen as a mistake to anybody. But, if it's not a mistake, it's great to have, to have those protections out there for children. But it's also good to kind of know the inner workings of everything to make sure that things are done correctly.
Absolutely. You need to be educated on anything that you're doing, especially when it comes to things that protect or affect your livelihood and your family.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for coming on today, Nicole. And thanks so much, everyone, for watching. We always appreciate and enjoy hearing your thoughts on what's happening in family courts today.